What would you say to those that think of the pride flag as being, representation of like lesbians, gays, and bisexuals, and that topic just being a little bit too complex for like an elementary student? Apparently we're the wrong kind of gay people. They only want certain kind of gay people here. This entire event is hypocrisy. You are kicking out one of our own, which means you are not inclusive, you are not welcoming, and you do not care. So you're saying that the LGBT community is intolerant. So you just want to speak to gay people that think like you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're inside Utah Pride, where we're going to be talking to many people about the LGBT topics that are hitting our society. Now, let's deep dive right into it and head on in. So I'm Frank, I'm an LGBT advocate out of California. So I go around talking about LGBT issues that are facing our community worldwide. Right now, I'm focusing on what's happening here in the United States. So I really talk about if the pride flag should be in classrooms and what people think about that. So what's your stance? Do you think that the pride flag should be in classrooms? If so, why? So right now there's a lot of talk about the pride flag in classrooms, and with what it represents, do you guys think that it's inclusive enough for like elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, or would you put a limit on where we could like educate kids about this?
I believe that anyone should be able to have it in any classroom, because it's there so that people can ask questions. And if kids as young as, my nieces and nephews who are really little want to ask a question about the flag, then that's up to them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we should put any bar on that at all.
Did you say?
Everywhere. It should be anywhere people want it. I don't think there should be legislation that prohibits where you fly your flag. There's not legislation that tells you where you can put a cross.
I think it's a big problem that a lot of people are like, oh, we just need to only do it in high schools or only do it in this, because gay people exist no matter what age they are, no matter what background that they come from. And I think starting young, like showing people that it is okay to be gay, and be yourself is very, very important. And I think what really leads to a lot of shame and high suicide rates is not teaching kids young that it is okay to be yourself.
You think of the pride flag, we have teachers in our classrooms that are putting it up in like elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. Do you think that that's appropriate, or do you think that there should be a cutoff, like maybe not elementary school, or is it okay?
Oh, wow, that's a really great question. I wish I had a little bit of time to put some thoughts into it.
What's your initial? This is very, very just a conversation. I don't want you to feel too pressured. It's just a simple conversation.
Yeah, I think it should be okay to put the flags in the classroom. We do have our national flag that are in schools, so I don't see any problems with that.
Yes. The American flag is in classrooms. Why can't we be represented too?
Yeah, I think it's good to represent our youth and make them feel welcome.
Yeah, to include everyone.
I don't know.
We're getting interviewed.
So what do you say to people that say, the LGBT flag is like inherently sexual and maybe elementary school might be too young? Maybe would you say that there should be an age limit to when they get exposed to these types of things?
Sexuality is a perspective.
They're going to get
If it's you, it's only sexualized if you sexualize it.
What do you mean by that? A lot of people push back that the pride flag represents like lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transgender. This topic could be very complex to like a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, and so we would say maybe it's a little too young for them. Would you put an age limit on it at all?
You sexualize a human body in the way people love. That's your view. Somebody wearing showing clothes and kissing someone they love isn't sexual until you view it in a perverted way. It's not inherently perverted. That's a view, and that needs to be fixed.
Let them know.
So when you think of and you can correct me, when I think of the pride flag, being a gay man, I think of lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgender, and I think of these ultra-sensitive topics that are really highly complex. And I just wonder if a kid in elementary school just might be a little too young to understand. What would you say to me?
I would say that they teach everything about straight people. People take their kids to church since the second they're born, make them sit down, be quiet, listen to sacrament meeting, take the sacrament, go get baptized at 8 years old.
I would say maybe it more represents just love in general. It doesn't have to be like a label or what you identify as, just I don't know.
You know, that's a big thing. Love is the number one answer that I get, is that the flag isn't inherently sexual. It represents love. So that makes me wonder, when you think about this, what separates us as LGBT people from a heterosexual? Well, let's keep the T out, LGB. What separates us from them? And I would say that I'm attracted to a man and they're attracted to a woman. I don't think necessarily a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old needs to know that. Would you say so?
I feel like if once they feel old enough to, ask the question themselves when they're wondering, then that's when we can answer that for them. But at the same time, we could just teach them the general idea of people are different. As long as they're loving and caring and they do what they want to do, then that's okay. And once they start asking questions when they're thinking about it themselves, then that's okay to answer them for them. Whatever they're asking.
For me, when I think about like the pride flag, I think about our community, like lesbians, gays, and bisexuals and transgender. And I just wonder if an 8-year-old wanted to know about that, or a 5-year-old, if they would have like the knowledge to be able to okay, I understand that. Or is it just a little too inappropriate for them? What would you say to me?
Yeah, I would say that's appropriate.
Appropriate or inappropriate?
I think it's appropriate for them to want to know about that, because seeing the flag is someone just realizing that they belong somewhere, and that's just all an 8-year-old would want to know.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to give a good shout out to my sponsors to this video, and that's all of my followers. We wouldn't be here at Utah Pride if it wasn't for your donations, your support, and your sharing of the content and message. So thank you all so much for contributing today, and I can't wait for you to see the rest of the interview. So let's go. So could we at least agree that teaching about even lesbian, gay, bisexual sex is a little too young for elementary school?
Sex itself, yes. Sexuality, no. Sex itself, yes. Sexuality, no. There's a difference.
I think.
What would the difference be between sexual orientation and sex?
So you can teach kids the difference between attraction. Like if you like a girl and you're a girl, that's fine. If you like a boy and you're a boy, that's fine. You don't need to present sex to them. Attraction is okay. Sex can be presented to them when they're at a better age. Attraction and sex are not the same thing.
Yeah, so when I think about the pride flag, I think about the community it represents, us, right? Lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgender. And then I put myself in the shoes of a 5-year-old. How can someone teach me that such complex issue at 5 or 6? And then I wonder, can they do it without their parents there? What would you say to those questions?
I don't think it's nearly as complex of an issue as a lot of people think it is. I mean, I have really young siblings, they're 4 and 5. And when I came out to them, they were like, oh, so you like girls and guys? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, okay. And that was it. They understood. I think kids understand a lot more and a lot easier than adults think that they will.
So when I think of this and wanting to make sure that we truly help our community and also make sure that there's a balance between us and the heterosexual community, that you would want to just teach kids to be nice to everyone, regardless of what they look like, regardless of who they might like, regardless of who they might hold their hand with. Just be nice to everyone and leave it up to parents to kind of have these discussions with their children. What would you say to those that think of the pride flag as being, representation of lesbians, gays, and bisexuals, and that topic just being a little bit too complex for an elementary student?
They have so much sexual innuendos and stuff in everyday cartoons and whatnot. And if a kid can understand heterosexual relationships, they can understand any relationships. It's hogwash.
How would one teach a kid, let's agree 8 or 9, about gay, lesbian, and bisexual? What would you say?
I think love can be taught without sex. I think love and caring can be taught without sexuality and without sexual orientations and all of that. I think if you show that you can be loved by everyone and you can show love to everyone, that is a comfortable, safe place to go. Instead of teaching sex, you can teach love.
Love is equal.
That's a big thing. I ask this question a lot, and that's the number one answer that I hear is, this is about love. So when you think about LGBT, right, inclusivity, we're going to have to deep dive into some sort of attraction that makes you different than heterosexuals.
Right.
Don't you think it would be a little bit easier or a little bit better for our community if we just taught kids, regardless of who someone is, regardless of what they look like, just be nice? You might not agree, and you don't even need to understand, but just be nice to the person. Would you say that?
Love is equal. Love should be equal on all fronts.
So what would you say to people that say that the flag is inherently sexual and maybe elementary school is just too young?
I would say they have a lot of education to do, because obviously we fear things that we don't know. We fear people that we don't expose ourselves to. So they just need to go out and get to know other people other than the circle that they hang out in.
Yeah. So for me, I think, when it comes down to it, I'm a little concerned with it being, in elementary schools, because for me, I find it hard to kind of be able to distinguish the love between the love that you have for your dad doesn't necessarily make you gay, or the love you have for your best friend doesn't necessarily make you a lesbian. So I find it inappropriate when you start kind of going into it's like about attraction, it's about, those types of feelings, or any type of sexual feelings. And I feel like if a child had those questions like at 5, 6, or 7, it should go to the parent. Would you agree with that or disagree?
I would agree with that. I think it should go to the parents.
So can I ask then, since we're talking about the pride flag in classrooms, we do have teachers displaying it, in elementary school. If a 5 or 6-year-old had questions about that, do you think it's most appropriate to go to the teacher or the parents to have that discussion?
I don't know. That's a hard one too, because I feel like parenting is a different spectrum of that. I would say ask the parent, because I feel like at the end of the day, like they're the ones that are living with them, and they should ask that question to the parents.
Yeah, I bring it up because everyone talks about like inclusivity and love, and I just feel like it wraps around just being nice.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's just about just being nice to everyone, and I don't think necessarily we need to teach the 5, 6, and 7-year-olds that this is what gay is. If you have a question, talk to your parents and just be nice to that kid over there. Yeah. You don't need to know anything else. How about you go be his friend? And I feel like our community and the heterosexual community would get along much better if that's the course we took, and let them have these discussions, because we have these big parades, we have all of these companies supporting us, that the generation I grew up in, where we were fearful of being homeless, was kind of dissipated. And we want to target especially those ones that aren't supportive, so when they turn 18, we have this loving community to accept them, your chosen family. So I guess my final question is who's the best person to talk about LGBT topics? If it's the teacher or the parents. If a child says, hey, I want to know what gay is, to their teacher and they're 8 years old, I feel like it's appropriate for the teacher to say, you should talk to your parents about that. What would you say?
Maybe they could have a parent-teacher conference about it and be like, let's involve your parents in this conversation. Let's bring the question to all of us. But sometimes the kids don't feel safe to bring it to their parents because they're afraid of what their parents might say. So going to their teacher. So it's really a basis by basis thing.
So I love that, because I feel like growing up, my dad would have done a lot better if the teacher said, hey, let me pull you aside. This is something that your son's starting to talk about. This is how you could support him. And, if you have any questions at all, contact the school. We'll be more than happy to help you. I feel like my dad would have done a lot better, because it's very confusing, right? Yeah. And so I feel like that would have been a really good crutch for him. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
And my final question is do you find my shirt offensive at all?
No. Wear what you want to wear, dude.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much, and I really hope you enjoy your Pride.
The festival producer, right, the guys that have the permit for this property, have asked you to leave. It will be trespassing if you don't leave.
Apparently, we're the wrong kind of gay people. It's going to really suck, because it's going to paint Pride very badly. You could have thrown me out, sir. I'm just saying you could have. Tomorrow is it automatic hands-on? Is that what we're saying? Lady MAGA was actually just kicked out, and we're going to get her initial reaction. So what are your thoughts about being kicked out of Utah Pride 2023?